What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Cage IQ. Of course, as always, I'm your host, D-Bake, and joining me once again is my co-host, Jim DiLullo. How's it going, Jim?
It's going, man. How's it going with you?
It's going good. I had a blast last weekend. Of course, I moved into my apartment. Now I'm just getting ready for this week's UFC event. Of course, we're going to be previewing UFC Vegas 42, which is headlined, of course, by Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. This was a fight that was originally booked in July, but
Yep.
because Max Holloway got hurt, they rescheduled it for this Saturday in November. Of course, before we get with any of the action, as always, this is Cage by IQ, the best place for MMA content. Just follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch at the handles to the left. We are now partnered with the Fighters First YouTube channel. So all you got to do is go to YouTube, put in Fighters First, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And of course, hit the notification button so you don't miss any of the content that we put out on the network. And please hit the like button on this video and comment who you think is going to win this Saturday. Help us out with the YouTube algorithm. Hitting the like button is an important thing with our videos. So if you could hit the like button, that'd be great. And of course, we have merch out now. All you got to do is go to fightersfirst.shop and check out the different collections that we have on there. And of course, we have the Cage My IQ collection. All you got to do is go to fightersfirst.shop, scroll down, click on the Cage My IQ collection, and check out the shirt and the hoodie that we have out right now to start out with. They're very comfortable. You don't even have to put them in the wash. You can just put them in right away, and they're very comfy. So please buy one of our shirts, support the show, and let us know what you think after you buy it. But of course, today, like I said before, we're doing the preview of the main card of UFC Vegas 42. It's going to be live from UFC Apex in Las Vegas. The prelims start at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then the main card starts at I believe it's 4 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast. There's going to be a 5-fight main card. As you see there, there's 12 fights on the card in general, 7 prelim, 5 main card right there. But at first, like when they announced it, what were your thoughts on the card in general?
Well, number one, this main event is something I've been waiting for what seems to be a year. That was
Yeah,
the longest 3 months I think I've ever had to endure, 4 months almost. But one fight that kind of stands out to me on this card is Miguel Baeza and Chaos Williams. I think that that's going to be a fire fight. Uh,
right
that's
there.
going to be
Yep.
a that's going to be a fantastic fight. Baeza, we've talked about before. I don't know if we've really talked about Chaos Williams. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
made the main card on any of our stuff yet, but his last fight, super impressive, went the distance, had good cardio, good conditioning. So I think that's like, besides this Max Holloway fight, if there were a fight to be fight of the night, it would be that one, I believe.
I'm looking forward to, on the prelim to the Sean Woodson Colin Anglin because
Yeah.
Sean Woodson is a tall guy, but he hasn't really knocked anybody out. And then Colin Anglin, he lost to Melsik Begnanovich, who knocked him out. But this is a fight where the underdog and Colin Anglin could sneak up and win this with his wrestling because Sean Woodson has been taken down many
Yep.
times in his fights. And it could be one of those gritty, dirty fights where Colin Anglin just takes him down, and controls him on the ground and keeps Woodson from putting on the volume. So that's another fight to just think about right there. But let's get started with the main card that we have on for you. First, I just want to announce the fights that we have on there. There's Yadong Sung versus Julio Arce. There's Roman Dolidze versus Kyle Daukaus. There's Felicia Spencer versus Leah Letson. There's Ben Rothwell versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. And then, of course, the main event is Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. There was a co-main event listed, but it got scrapped because of course, Vince St. Preux got hurt a week ago, so that fight got scrapped. It sucked for Felipe Lins because it's supposed to be Felipe Lins versus Vince St. Preux, and I think they're looking to reschedule it for a later date, probably in the next month or so. So keep a lookout for that upcoming. But let's get started with the first fight that we have for you on this main card. We have a great matchup in the bantamweight division between Sung Yadong versus Julio Arce. First, we got Sung Yadong, who is 15-5-1 and is the minus 160 favorite, whereas Julio Arce is 17-4 and is the plus 135 underdog. In this matchup, you got Sung Yadong, who's coming in from China. He fights out Harbin Helouan province, China. He is 23 years old, so he's very young. He's 135 pounds. He is 5'8" with a 67-inch reach, and he fights out Team Alpha Male. So that's something to keep in mind of there. Then you got Julio Arce, who is fighting out of New Jersey in the United States. He's 32 years old. He is 135 pounds. He is 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. So he has a 3-inch advantage over Yadong Sung. And he fights out Tygo Sherman Mixed Martial Arts. He trains with, of course, Shane Burgos, who fought last week on 268 there. And then, of course, if you look at the last 5 fights, you got Sung, who he beat Alejandro Perez by KO TKO. He drew with Cody Stamann. He beat Marlon Vera by decision. He lost to Connor Phillips by decision in what people say is a questionable decision, where they thought that Sung Yadong won the fight. And then he beat Casey Kenny by split decision in his last fight 2 months ago. Whereas Julio Arce beat Daniel Tamor by submission rear naked choke. He lost to Shaman Moraes by split decision, a guy who is now in the PFL now. He beat Horian Arusa, Drew CJ by KO TKO head kick. He lost to Hakeem Delwadu by split decision. And in his last fight, he beat Andre Yule by KO punches. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight, and who do you have winning?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting matchup between two guys looking to continue gaining their momentum from their last fight. You just highlighted they're both wins. Arce is able to get the job done in a variety of ways, most recently through his striking, whereas Sung Yadong has seen his last 4 fights go to the judges. With this fight, I see Arce using his reach to his advantage and mixing in combinations to rack up the volume. It would benefit Song to look for the takedown. Like you said, be on the lookout about the Team Alpha Male stuff. I'm assuming that that's what you meant, the wrestling.
Yeah.
Kind of the wrestle-heavy approach. But lately, for Song Yadong, he's been comfortable working on his feet and likes to get into these firefights and let it go to the judges. So with that being said, I think I'm going to go with former Cage My IQ guest, Julio Arce, by decision. I think this is the 5th fight for Song Yadong that goes to decision, but he just doesn't win it.
Yeah, of course, Sung Yadong is the slight favorite here. Look, I was leaning towards Julio Arce at first because I did like the combinations that he was using in Andre Yule. But I just feel like Sung Yadong has fought the better competition, and like he looked very strong in the last fight against Casey Kenny, a guy that likes to throw leg kicks. And that's something that you saw quite a bit from Arce in his last fight, and you're probably going to see it again in this fight. And I feel like what Yadong Sung did a lot in the Kenny fight was throw those combinations. He kept on pushing forward. He didn't move back, and he was making Casey Kenny work a lot. And I don't know what to expect from Julio Arce when the same thing happens to him, but I also like the cardio in the fight from Yadong Sung. He didn't seem to fade like people were saying he was going to do. Like he was very selective with the strikes, but whenever he threw with with combinations, and he put in a lot of volume in the fight, whereas Arce is not really known for a lot of volume. And I feel like both guys can get going, but I feel like Julio Arce is going to get behind on the judges' scorecards because of the volume.
Okay.
And at first I had Yadong sung by knockout, but then I saw that Julio Arce really hasn't been knocked out at all. It's been like whenever he loses by decision. So I have Yadong sung by a majority decision just for the fact that he's going to put out high volume, and Julio Arce is going to lose out because of it.
Okay. I mean, if you look at like the trend as far as
Yeah,
Julio's record goes, he alternates wins and losses. So, you
yeah.
know, if you base it on the trends, the next one would be the loss based on what he's at now. But we're on the you're North Pole, I'm South Pole when it comes to this. But this is going to be an interesting fight. I like this matchup a lot, actually.
Me too. But let's move on to the second fight that we have here on the main card. We have a middleweight matchup that shows Roman Dolidze going up against Kyle Daukaus. This fight was put together kind of last minute because both guys' opponents had to bear out due to injury. But first, we had Roman Dolidze, who is 9-1 and is the plus 200 underdog, whereas Kyle Daukaus comes in at 10-2 and is the minus 250 favorite. And then in this matchup, you got as you see here, you got Roman Dolidze, who he is fighting out of Georgia, Odessa. He's from Georgia. He fights out of Odessa, Ukraine. He's 33 years old, 186 pounds. He is 6'2 with a 76-inch reach. And then he doesn't have any gym affiliated on here yet. Whereas Kyle Daukaus is fighting out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He is 26 years old, 185 and a half pounds. He is 6'3 with a 76-inch reach. So they're about the same around about with the height and reach. And then he fights out Martinez BJJ. But of course, he also trains at Gracie Gym in Philly, where he works out majority of his grappling tendencies and wrestling. But what do you think of this fight, and then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is a good matchup. Although the matchups before that, Daukaus Holland rematch was great. The Litze versus Anders would have been fantastic.
Yep.
But we'll get those further down the line. But this is a good matchup nonetheless. Roman looked really impressive his last time out against Seropoli and put together a really good showing. Whereas last time we saw Kyle, it was a no contest versus Kevin
Yeah.
Holland. I give the striking advantage to Kyle in terms of accuracy and the striking defense to Roman. The thing about this fight is that both guys like to take it to the ground and seem to thrive and be comfortable on bottom or, on the ground. Kyle's really good BJJ. Like you said, he works with the Gracies. He works with his brother, obviously. Andre Petrosky's over there. So a lot of UFC caliber fighters are training over in Philly. Philly, is, our adjacent home, right? That would be our city
Yeah.
home right there. But he's got really good BJJ, and he's really good at taking the back and finding the neck. Whereas Roman has really good wrestling and can smother you with pressure. This was a very tough one, but I'm going to be a homer on this one. I'm going with Kyle by second round choke. I think he does. He gets him with a Darce.
Yeah, this one was a tough one for me as well, just for their backgrounds, and that's why I kind of want to go into their like past fights to kind of like go into how they've won their fights. First, you got Roman Dolidze, as you see here, he's fighting Daukaus, but his last fight he beat Strapoli. He won by decision there back in June.
Mhm.
He had a fight like that was canceled with D. Shrico. He lost to Trevin Giles by a decision. He beat John Allen by a split decision, and he beat Kadis Ibrahimov by knees and ground and pound in his debut with the UFC. And then he's also had some finishes in the WWFC there. But since he's come to the UFC, he's been more of like a decision fighter, minus the first fight. He's been more like a split or unanimous decision type of guy in the 3-4 fights that he's been in there, even lose by decision. And then, of course, you go back and you got Kyle Daukaus with his past fights. He had the Kevin Holland fight, which was a no contest, in which he had the accidental headbutt, but he did, which afterwards he locked in the submission. He lost to Phil Hoss by decision. He beat Dustin Stoltzfus by unanimous decision. He lost to Brendan Allen by decision. And then in CFFC, he beat both of his opponents by Darce choke submission. And then he beat another guy by Darce choke. And then he beat Michael Lombardo on the Contender Series by decision. And then you see here, he has a couple more Darce chokes and then a couple rear naked choke victories in a couple other promotions. So he has that, to me, he has that background, submission grappling background. And that's why I'm leaning towards Kyle Daukaus here, because I think Roman Dolidze is more like just a guy that can throw strikes and just get enough volume to defeat his opponent. Whereas Daukaus, he does have that more crisp striking, but he relies primarily on like his grappling. He kind of uses the striking to gain entry into the pocket to where he can clinch up his opponent. He kind of did that with Kevin Holland before the headbutt. He was striking at Holland, and then he was kind of using that to get inside, and then he grappled with him, and that's what like the headbutt happened. And then after the headbutt, he used it to get the submission on him. He finds ways, even if he has to take his back, he uses the back to get the that's how he usually gets the Darce choke or the guillotine. He usually just drops to his back and he applies the pressure. And being in that Jim and Gracie, he knows how to find ways to lock in submissions. And I just feel like this is a fight where he's going to win by second round rear naked choke. I feel like he's going to take him down. Roman Dolidze is going to have that issue where he's going to want to like let his back up to get to the ground. He's going to leave the back open, and that's where Kyle Daukaus is just going to take the back and utilize it and lock in the choke for the victory.
Yeah, I mean, we're both on the same street, just in different cars.
Yeah.
You're going with rear naked, and I'm going with Darce. It's a good matchup, and when you look at just like you look at their builds, 9 out of 10 times, like a casual fan is going to pick Dolidze because he looks like he's he's made out of like marble, and Kyle Daukaus looks just like a regular dude. But that's like the difference in styles, man, and it's where we go where styles make fights, right? And this is a really good matchup. I'm very excited for this one. I'm circling this one as one to watch.
Yeah, and hopefully for Kyle, he can pick up the victory because he had a lot of momentum in that Holland fight, and then of course got no contest. They're supposed to face each other again, and then Kevin Holland gets hurt, so he wants that rematch because he wants to get that no contest off of his not off of his record, but off of his back because he feels like he was going to win it no matter what. And then Dolidze is just like he's a guy that's trying to climb the ladder now. After that Stropoli victory, so this is going to be a decent fight. But like we said, we both have Kyle Daukaus edging out Dolidze in it.
That's right.
But let's move on to the third fight on the main card. Of course, we got the women's featherweight matchup that pits Felicia Spencer versus Leah Letson. In this fight, Felicia Spencer comes in at 8-3 and is the minus 335 heavy favorite, whereas Leah Letson comes in at 5-1 and is the plus 260 underdog in this matchup. Of course, you see the lineup here. You got Felicia Spencer, who is fighting out of Orlando, Florida. She's Canadian. She's 30 years old, 145 pounds. She's 5'6" with a 68-inch reach, and she fights out of the Jungle MMA and Fitness Gym. Whereas Leah Letson comes in, she fights out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She's 29 years old, 146 pounds. She's 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, so she has that 3-inch reach advantage. And then she fights out of Vandalay Jiu-Jitsu Gym. What do you think of this fight, and then who do you have coming out as the victor?
Yeah, so this matchup shows the absolute lack of competition the women's featherweight division has. And that's not to say that the fighters in this division are bad. It just says that there's not a lot of top quality fighters. Spencer hasn't fought in a while, but or hasn't won in a while, I'm sorry, but has been more active, and the level of competition has been extremely tough. She's fought champions, number one contenders, and former champions. Letson hasn't fought in 3 years, which makes me think that there's going to be some ring rust. Letson is a good striker. Statistically, she lands a lot. Felicia Spencer is hittable. So, there's that kind of curveball you could throw in there if you're a betting man or woman. And she does have the reach advantage. But Spencer needs to bounce back. She has those 2 losses on her record, albeit to Norma Dumont and Amanda Nunes, but she needs a win. She really needs a win to get back up onto the that top spot. And this seems like a bounce back fight. So I'm going to go with Spencer by unanimous decision.
This is a sneaky fight because you see this and you're like, why is she 2-3 in the last 5 fights, whereas Letson is 4-1, but then she's still the -335 favorite. You got to go back into her fights and look at the level of competition that she's fought, considering she's primarily a grappler, and then striking's like her secondary. But she lost to Norma Dumont by split decision. She lost to then you look into the grappling. She lost to Amanda Lowen by armbar. But then her last fight before Dumont, she lost to Amanda Nunes by unanimous decision. She beat Zara Farron by ground and pound round 1. And then she lost to a Cyborg by unanimous decision.
Yep.
So she fought Nunes, Cyborg, and Dumont, and all those she lost by decision. So she didn't get knocked out. Then before that, she beat Megan Anderson by rear naked choke, Pam Sorensen by rear naked choke, and Helena Kolesnik by rear naked choke, all in a row. And then, of course, if we want to throw a decision and then rear naked choke again. So she has that ground game and that grappling where she can get the fight to the ground and use her submission expertise to get the victories. I think that's part of the reason why she didn't get knocked out by the big guns there, was because of her expertise getting into the clinch when she's getting hit to avoid the big damage.
Yeah.
Like she was still taking damage, but she was avoiding the real heavy shots. Then you got Leah Letson, who's coming in, and then she hasn't fought in, like you said, since
3 years.
2018, where she beat Julia Storyenko by split decision. In the Ultimate Fighter, she lost to Macy Chiazon by knee to the body. She beat Bay Malecki by unanimous decision. And then 2017 in Invicta, she beat Elizabeth Phillips by head kicking punches. And then she beat Sarah Pyatt by TKO punches as well. So she hasn't really fought in the past couple of years. And she did fight good competition in the Ultimate Fighter. But it's been a couple of years now, so she has to come in with a little bit of cage rust, not being active. Whereas Felicia Spencer has fought like the best of the best, if you want to say, in women's MMA, and then Norma Dumont, who's a rising star in that division in the UFC. But this is one where I got to go with the veteran here. I got to go with Felicia Spencer, because even though Leah Letson is better on the feet and she's going to put out the better striking, I don't know what to expect from her.
Right.
Because she's been out for 3 years. I know I can count on Felicia Spencer to clinch it up close. I know she's fought the best. I know she's not going to get knocked out, because if Cyborg and Nunes don't knock you out, Leah Letson's not going to knock you out, unless it's something very crazy,
right,
where she trips and just gets hit clear on. I expect her to clinch up early, avoid the big damage, and take her down to the ground. And then I got her by unanimous decision. I just think she's going to do a lot of ground and pound work on Letson. Letson's going to get taken down several times, and it's going to be an easy victory for Spencer.
Yeah, man. I actually, before doing notes, right, I saw
Yeah,
this. Like, I really don't know much about Leah Letson. You know,
yeah,
her record 5-1, impressive, right? But you know, we're looking at Ultimate Fighter, and
yeah,
Invicta stuff. So she hasn't fought the creme de la creme, if you will. So at first I was
yeah,
like, let's go Felicia Spencer first round submission.
yeah.
So I'm still gonna go with UD, just like you, but it's gonna be a tricky one, man. She might just get choked out first round. One takedown, it's over.
But I will say is she has to watch out because if she can't get her grappling going, say Lexin can defend the takedowns or defend the clinch entries, she might be able to sneak away with like a 2 rounds to 1 victory just by gaining just enough
Yeah,
striking, kind of like what Norma Dumont did. She was able to just get just enough striking to edge her in a split decision.
yeah,
So keep that out there. Like if you want to get like a nice 6 fight like lineup, and then you can expect Letson to be very cheap. If you want to give like just like good old college try and
yeah.
throw in there, there is that possibility she can sneak out a victory, and she's going to be low on the money, so you can invest in a lot of better people in your lineup
Yeah,
just by putting her in there.
look at last week with Cliff Curtis.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Comes out of nowhere and knocks Halls out in what it was a phenomenal fight. So
even
there's
even Barnett.
yeah, Barnett, man, might be my favorite human being on this planet. His
Yeah,
dance moves, how he didn't break his tailbone on that flip blows my mind, but super impressive. Reminded
yeah,
me of Roy Nelson a little bit with that agility and that leg kick, not the dancing, but
yeah,
that head kick was wild.
yeah. But let's transition from that to the co-main event evening. We got a heavyweight matchup that pits Ben Rothwell going up against Marcos Rogerio de Lima in a great fun matchup. We got Ben Rothwell coming in at 39-13 and is the minus 150 favorite, whereas Marco Rogerio de Lima, he comes in at 18-7-1 and is the plus 130 underdog. First, you got Ben Rothwell. He is coming out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's 40 years old, so he's up there in age. He is 265 pounds. He is 6'4 with an 80-inch reach. And then he fights out Rothwell MMA, his own gym.
Yep.
And then you got De Lima, who fights out Sao Paulo, Brazil. He is 36 years old, 264 and a half pounds. He is 6'1 with a 75-inch reach, and he fights out of America Top Team. So, of course, Rothwell is the bigger guy with the bigger reach, and he's the older guy with more experience. But what do you expect from this fight, and then who do you have victorious?
Yeah, man. Of all the fights, this is one that I'm actually really excited for.
Yeah,
This could be a great fight depending on how long it goes. In my opinion, I believe Rothwell is the better fighter and has way more experience. We know that. De Lima has power, but he is susceptible to being choked out early, which caters to Rothwell's style as of late. We just saw him, believe he choked out Josh Barnett in his last fight around. Ben still has a ton of power, and add in his underrated submission game. I believe he has 13 submission wins
yeah,
of his record. So it seems to be a recipe for success. Even if this goes into the third round, I think Ben's reach advantage is going to help him secure the win. So I got Ben Rothwell by actually a second round submission. I think he's going to choke out De Lima in the second round, get work in the clinch, and just grab that neck, and it's game over.
yeah. Checking out both fighters' fight history. First, you got Ben Rothwell. In his last fight, he beat Chris Barnett, a Huggy Bear, by a guillotine choke round 2 in May. Then he had a bunch of cancer fights. He lost to Marcin Tabora by unanimous decision. Then he beat Vince St. Preux by split decision. He beat Stefan Struve by punches, in which a lot of people think that he low blowed Stefan Struve. And then before that, he had decision losses to Orlovsky and Ivanov Bayagov. And then, of course, a couple of cancer bouts with Verdum. And then he lost by decision to Dos Santos. And then that front choke victory over Josh Barnett. And then also he had a front choke victory over Matt Mitrione. So he's the guy that's either going to win by decision or by choke. Those are his preferences in his fights, because he's that big guy that you wouldn't have thought was a very big grapple and submission artist instead of like a knockout artist for the division. Then you got Rogerio de Lima, and in his fights, he beat Maurice Green by decision. He lost to Alexander Romanov by forearm choke. So, yeah, that's something to keep an eye on because Romanov is of the Ben Rothwell fight frame where he looks for submissions and uses his big frame to overpower guys. He beat Ben Sassoli by punches. He lost to Stefan Struve by arm triangle choke. That's a common opponent right there. And then he beat Adam Wyachek by unanimous decision. And then he also lost to Vince St. Preux by Von Flue choke. And he beat Jeremy Kimball by punches. And then in his last three that I'm going to list, he beat Antigulov by he lost to Antigulov by guillotine. He beat Hester by arm triangle choke, and then he lost to Nikita Krylov by rear naked choke. So he has lost quite a few times by submission. So that's something to keep an eye on in this fight, because with a guy who is known for winning by submission, and that's the guy you're fighting, and you tend to be losing a lot of fights by submission. That's not a good thing to have, because then you're going to be prone to it in this fight. I do think that it's either going to be De Lima by first round knockout because he has that knockout power, but anything after that early on in the first round, I got Ben Rothwell by submission, because I think you're going to get Rogerio de Lima come in with a fury. He's going to come out strong and try and knock him out early. I think then he's going to kind of tire down a little bit, and then that's when Ben Rothwell is going to take over with the grappling game. He's going to just force himself on him, take him down, and then I think that's when he's going to win. I think it's going to be by first round rear naked choke, not first round guillotine. I think it's going to be like he's going to go for the rear naked choke. De Lima's going to try and get up, and then he's going to transition over to the guillotine. And he's going to be able to just, with him being already tired by trying to do the early onslaught, he's just going to crank it in there. And it's going to take like 10, 15 seconds. But then I think De Lima is going to tap. And you're going to have Ben Rothwell pick up the first round victory via guillotine submission.
Yeah, we're right there, man. Right there with the submission, just different rounds. And as you were scrolling through that, you just hit on my main point, right? If you looked at all of his submission losses, we're talking about De Lima here. It was late first round, mid second round. So that's as far as it goes. So it's either he's choked out early or he's going to the decision. And like you said, you're bringing in Ben Rothwell, tons of experience, tons of submissions. I mean, this wasn't as tough as I thought it was going to be going into it. I was like, damn, that's a kind of a weird, like stat that like all of your losses are just being choked out.
Yeah.
And to Stefan Struve, who's like 9 feet tall. When was the last time you saw Stefan Struve choke somebody out? Obviously against Marcus Rogerio de Lima.
Yeah, and for me, that was a red flag. It's like, if you got a guy that's primarily a submission artist, and then you got a guy that loses a lot by submission, then you know that unless the guy that's prone to it can get that early knockout and then keep the fight from getting into the clinch, he's going to be at a disadvantage because it's going to go into the clinch, and then he's going to wind up like losing via choke like he usually does. And I think that's why like we get to that same spot where we think Ben Rothwell is going to pick up the victory.
Yeah, it's great matchmaking nonetheless. They did a good job with
Yeah.
this one.
Yep. But let's move on to the main event of the evening. Of course, we got a featherweight matchup between Max Holloway going up against Yair Rodriguez. And in this fight, Max Holloway is 22-6 and is the minus 550 heavy favorite,
Yep.
whereas Yair Rodriguez is coming in at 13-2 and is the plus 400 underdog. First, you got Max Holloway, who comes in fighting out of Walane, Hawaii. Try saying that.
No, we saw. That was a good try.
We saw.
College try.
Yeah, exactly. And he's 29 years old, 146 pounds. He is 5'11 with a 69-inch reach, and he trains at Gracie Technics gym, whereas Yair Rodriguez fights out of Chicago, Illinois. He is of Mexican descent. He is 29 years old, just like Max Holloway. He's 145 pounds, and he's 5'11 with a 71-inch reach. And he fights out of VFS Academy Gym. Jim, what do you think of this main event, and who do you have winning?
Yeah, well, first it's two of the tallest guys in the division going up against each other.
Yep.
We usually see Holloway being the taller of the fighters, and now Yair's coming in at 5'11 as well. But I've been waiting for this matchup for months. Ever since it was announced, I had this circled like I can't miss it. Then I saw, it's a 1 o'clock start time, and I was like, Jesus, there goes my whole day. But whatever. You have arguably one of the best fighters in the UFC with Max Holloway.
Yes.
Going up against one of the most dynamic fighters in the UFC, if not the most dynamic featherweight in Yair. This has Fight of the Night written all over it. Max's stand-up game is unlike any other in the division, and we know what to expect. Excellent boxing, trash talk, clench work, elbows. He's good at all of it. But with Yair, we know that he can get erratic and throw these unusual punches. We saw that reverse elbow that he threw, jumping off the cage, and very toned down Michel Pereira, right? You know what I mean? Max's nonstop pressure and above accuracy in terms of strikings is going to pay dividends in this fight, and I got Max by 4th round TKO.
Oh, that's very nice.
Thank you,
sir. But breaking down both fight history here, I'm going to start with Max Holloway, of course. In his last couple of fights, he beat Calvin Kattar by unanimous decision, where he had over 300 strikes. Now, he just poured on a lot of volume. Then you had the 2 fights with Alexander Volkanovski, where he lost by split decision, where I felt like he won, but it went to Volkanovski. And then the first one where he lost by unanimous decision, where it clearly was Volkanovski, but there's a lot of volume that got put into both of those fights. Then he beat Frankie Edgar by unanimous decision. He lost to Dustin Poirier by unanimous decision, where he got punished in that fight, but he didn't get knocked out.
And that was up a weight class, right? That was at 155?
Yeah, it was for the interim lightweight championship at the time when Dustin Poirier won it, and then he lost it to Khabib.
Yes.
When Khabib, it was around. Yeah. And then he beat Brian Ortega by doctor stoppage, and then he also beat Jose Aldo by ground and pound 2 times. He beat Anthony Pettis by punches, and then he beat Ricardo Lamas by a unanimous decision. And then you got Yair Rodriguez, who coming in his last few fights, he beat Jeremy Stevens by unanimous decision. They had the fight where they had the no contest due to the accidental eye gauge in the fight in the first 15 seconds. He beat Korean Zombie in the last second with that miracle elbow that knocked down Korean Zombie, in which Korean Zombie was winning that fight up until the last second. He lost to Frankie Edgar by doctor stoppage. He beat BJ Penn by head kick and punches. He beat Casares by split decision. He beat Andre Philly by head kick, in which Andre Philly just wasn't covering his face. He beat Dan Hooker by unanimous decision. He beat Rosa by split decision. He beat Leonardo Morales by decision. And then he beat in exhibition bouts on the Ultimate Fighter Rodolfo Perez and Humberto Brown Morrison by KO, TKO round 1, and then by triangle choke in round 2. So he's a majority guy where he wins his fights by decision, and then he had that one fluke loss to Edgar where he lost by doctor stoppage, which I forget where he happened, but he's really not going to lose by getting knocked out. So you got two guys who like to go to decision, and then they don't get knocked out at all. Like Max Holloway hasn't been knocked out, and then Yair Rodriguez got doctor stoppage once, and then that's it. But I think the thing in this fight is look at the last 3 fights for Holloway. He fought the top tier guys like Poirier, Volkanovski. He's fought Brian Ortega. He wanted to fight Khabib on short notice, but he couldn't. But he's a guy that's going to take damage. He takes a lot of damage, and then he doesn't get knocked out. And then he pours in anywhere from like 100 to 300 strikes in his fights. He's forward pressure, comes at you, throws a lot of combinations, whether it's leg kicks or boxing. His boxing's his bread and butter. Whereas Yair Rodriguez, just to me, his striking is good, but he does just enough to win the volume battle, which is why he wins by a decision. And then he usually avoids getting knocked out in his fights. That's why I'm leaning towards Max Holloway in this fight. I think he's going to pour in a lot more volume. His combination is going to come in. He's going to constantly push Yair Rodriguez back towards the cage. And that's why I think there's a play for a third or fourth round knockout. Just like you said round 4. I think there's a play for third and fourth round because I think all that forward pressure causing Yair Rodriguez to move back a lot is going to do a lot of wear and tear on Rodriguez. And it's going to tire him out because he's not used to all that backwards movement. He's used to being the guy that pushes forward and throws at a guy. And that's not going to happen in this fight because Max Holloway only knows one way to go, and that's forward.
Yep.
And even in his fights with Volkanovski, he was moving forward. It's just that Volkanovski is able to fight on his back foot. So he's able to combat it. Rodriguez won't be able to do that. And I think the safe bet here is to go Max Holloway by unanimous decision, where he wins either 4 or 5 rounds, and then maybe Rodriguez steals a round late because of all the volume in round 5. Or you can play the round 3 or 4 knockout by Holloway because I do think that he has that chance to do it with his boxing where he can just wear him out. But for me, I got Max Holloway by unanimous decision.
Ooh, it sounded like you were about to say Yair a little bit. I was a little nervous. This is fight in the night right here. I don't believe this is gonna be a war like we saw with Gaethje and Chandler, which maybe that was a COVID scare back last week, but I'm glad that fight happened because what a war those 2 guys put on. But this is gonna be a great fight. Obviously, if Holloway wins this, the next fight is the trilogy with Volkanovski. You don't go anywhere else. There's no warm-up fights. You don't give him Brian Ortega. You don't give him Calvin Kattar again. Or Danny Gay. You go right to Volkanovski. That's my opinion.
Yeah, he definitely deserves it because there's definitely like a thing in it where he probably should have won the second fight after losing the belt to Volkanovski, and he has claim to it after this because this is the only guy that can say that he didn't beat. He didn't get beat by Max Holloway, and if he loses, then he loses that, and then that's the only thing Holloway has, and then Holloway would have earned the right to get that rematch with Volkanovski, and I think he's gotten better since the 2 fights with Volkanovski, because he's upped his volume game, and then just how he doesn't spar now. Like if a guy like this can not spar at all and then come into the fight and then pour out all that volume, he's a bad dude. Yeah. And that's why, like, to me, like, he's one of my favorite fighters to watch because he goes in there, no fear, and then he just goes at it, and like it's his last fight, and That's why I got him picking up this easy victory, and then I have him going into that rematch. And I'm saying it right now. He gets that rematch, he's beating Volkanovski.
I agree. I thought he won the second fight, and I believe he wins the trilogy when that happens.
Yep. But that will wrap things up with this edition of Cage by IQ, with where we preview UFC Vegas 42, headlined by Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. Of course, look down below. Please send us your comments, opinions, and of course, hit the like button down below on this video and subscribe to the Fighters First Network on YouTube. And then before we get going, I just want to get a shout out to our sponsor. We got High Tide Herbal. All you got to do is use promo code CageMyIQ10 at checkout on www.hightideherbal.com and watch as you receive 10% off your next purchase. High Tide Herbal is a company owned by coaches and athletes who specialize in speedy recovery. All the products have CBD oil in it, and the goal with High Tide Herbal is to help athletes recover from injury faster. So once again, use promo code CageMyIQ10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next purchase. But that'll wrap things up with today's show. We will be back next week to preview UFC Vegas, in which it's headlined by Ketlin and Yair going up against Misha Tate, a fight that was supposed to take place last month, but because of COVID, it was pushed until next week. So tune in next week for that, and tune in for the rest of the week for all the content here with Cage by IQ. I'll be coming out with my DFS by Cage video tomorrow, and I'll be coming out with my Bellator 271 video sometime in the next day or two. So keep an eye out on all the content here on the Fighters First Network. But that'll wrap things up. I am your host, D-Bake. This is my co-host, Jim DiLullo. And we will talk to you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.